Hello and welcome, our Vidyapit alum. We can see some brothers like Shreyas Da, Anupam Da, Gautam Da, Rupajyoti Da, Amit Banwa. This is the first session of our Praktani Prerna. Praktani Prerna has been started with the objective to bring non-alum to our community from various professional backgrounds for our welfare. And we are very lucky to have Shilpa Gole. She is from IRMA, where I did my post graduation. Shilpa is a principal officer and managing partner of Nerdy Bird Wealth Advisory. In fact, she's a SEBI registered investment advisor, and not just anyone. And she has been doing a wonderful job. If you see, she has appeared in lots of television episodes, especially on ET Now and ET Now Swadesh. And no one can be more qualified than her, at least who I know of, to help us in the community to plan for our retirement. So the topic is, will I have enough? And this is a very practical session based on Shilpa's, immense experience and the advisory job she has done. So without much ado, I will pass on the stage to Shilpa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ritesh. I hope all of you can hear me. Just give me a thumbs up if you can. Great. Thank you. And I'd like to see more videos on Swaroop ji, Gautam ji, Roopjyoti ji, Ritvik, Prakash. Thank you, Swaroop ji. So let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you're all able to see the slide. And if yes, just give me a thumbs up. Thank you. All right, so welcome to the session on Will I Have Enough? A practical guide to retirement planning. We unfortunately, Ritesh has given me only 45 minutes, and I want to leave 15 minutes to answer your questions. So he's given me 1 hour, but I want to give you 10 to 15 minutes to talk to me and ask your questions. So with that and no further ado, let me get started. A big thank you to Ritesh for inviting me to do this first session and for your alumni association. Ritesh and I are also alumni of B School, and we've done our business school from the same college. Of course, he's very senior to me, and it's an immense privilege that he has invited me to do this for his school alumni. So thank you so much, Ritesh, for having me. Okay, so this is a practical session. I would invite you to keep a journal and a pen ready or any note-taking device because this does go into a little bit of exploration about yourself and your life goals and the way you look at your retirement. So to make it more relevant, it'll be good if you can also have some note-taking device ready with you. And please go ahead and share your thoughts in the chat box. I will be looking at the chat box now and then. And my colleague Sudha Raju has also joined me to help me with the chat box monitoring and to keep you engaged in the chat box. So Sudha is a client success manager at Nerdy Bird Wealth Advisory LLP, and she's also a financial fitness coach. So she helps people around managing their financial behaviors and getting more consistent with their financial actions. All right. So a quick disclaimer, this none of the information that we are sharing here is unique to your context. I think each of us here has a very unique context, a unique background. We have our own challenges, we have our own successes along the way. So it's very important that you visit and you speak to a SEBI registered investment advisor before you make any contextual decisions. Whatever we are sharing here in this session, can I request you to keep your mic muted, Devdi? Thank you. So, whatever we share in this session will be very generic in nature. So, we are talking about some very broad concepts. While I will try my best to help you contextualize it, I won't be able to talk to each of you and help you plan financially. So, do visit an RIA for that. All right, a little bit about who we are. At Nerdy Bird, we want to see humans around the world feeling confident with their money. So, taking charge of your money means you're confident to manage your journey independently. And most importantly, you're able to look at money as a means to get to all your life goals. I'm sure each of us have different things that are important to us. Some of us want to travel. Some of us, care about our family life. For each of us, there is something that we value. Some of us value our time. So with every person, it's important that you look at money as a means to accomplish your values, your life goals. And we're here to help you feel confident with that. How do we do it? We have two sets of services. We are a SEBI registered investment advisor. So we have a department which is focused on fixed fee only financial planning and investment advisory. We also have a commission based service in a different department where we offer mutual fund investment services. That is a completely different segment that we have to offer. While Ritesh has already introduced me, I just want to focus on a couple of things here. So, when we talk about holistic financial planning, we look at not just your investments and your retirement, but also taxes, insurance, and your estate planning. So, financial planning has to be looked at holistically, and we are here to do that with you. So, let's quickly jump into what we are going to do in today's session. Now, some of you might be in a phase of accumulation. So you've not yet reached retirement, you're still accumulating wealth for your retirement. And for you, what matters is how much is enough, what is the target fund that you need to set for yourself, and how do you get there? And for some of you who are already in retirement, I will spend some time with you just helping you understand how to create a retirement income from. So how do you withdraw in a sustainable way from your retirement fund so that you don't run out of money, just midway into your retirement. So how do you think about doing that sustainably? And for all of us, it's important to protect ourselves from risk, make sure our wealth is protected from risks along the way. So we will also cover that for both phases of life. And of course, we will start by helping you visualize your point B. So, where is it that you want to get to? Then look at what your point A looks like. All right. With that, let's jump into a very important question. Why are we even here today? Why talk about retirement planning? So, I'd love to hear from you in the chat box. What does retirement mean to you? Why is this so important? Why are you here today on this meeting? Please share with me in the chat box. We can unmute towards the end and share our questions. But now I'd love some interaction in the chat box. But I think if you're only 19 of us, if someone wants to unmute and share, please go ahead. What does retirement mean to you? Anybody? There are no right answers.
This is Gautam.
Yes, please, Gautamji.
I think for some of us, it's a matter of psychological comfort, financial independence, and basically not having to be dependent on children or grandchildren. But I think the psychological comfort is the most important thing.
Thank you. That's such a profound thought that you shared. Psychological comfort. I also see some thoughts coming in psychological comfort and also being independent of your children. Then there's Atal who says, finally doing what we love to do, freedom to do things without income, financial independence, retirement from a particular activity, tired of working for money all my life. So having funds to manage without slogging
ये
forever.
अच्छे से नहीं हुआ। ये सबका ही
Uh,
होगा।
uh, Retirement, inevitable phase for most of us, nothing called retirement, right? I think some of us don't like the word retirement. We don't want to retire and we want to continue to do something in our lives. But I think if I had to define retirement for this meeting today, I look at it as a point in time in my life where I can choose not to work for money. So, as some of you very rightly pointed out, where I don't have to actively work for money anymore, and I can live off the nest egg that I have created. And like Gautamji very rightly pointed out, having enough in that nest egg will just help you uh, experience satisfaction, happiness, comfort, a lot of positive feelings around financial well-being. So let's now move on to the next slide. Typically, these are some of the questions that I get on retirement. Is it even possible to retire completely? Where do I begin? How much money do I need to be able to retire? Where do I invest this retirement money? How early can I start drawing a passive income from my investments? And for some people, it is where can I find support? So I'll try to address as much as I can in the next 40 minutes. And if I can't, I hope that Ritesh will invite me again sometime later to do a more deep dive into certain topics. So, why does retirement planning matter? One is there are many myths around retirement calculation. So, a lot of people believe that if they are sitting on a big enough nest egg, they can just live off the interest income or the returns from that principal for the rest of their lives. And we forget to take into account how things get more expensive over time. The other thing is that in a lot of our countries, especially I think most of us are in India, pension benefits are absent
Retirement planning.
almost. Gautamji, if you could just mute your mic. Negligible in some of, and pension benefits are not available. So a lot of it comes from our own active contribution to our retirement fund. Also, a lot of us are going to live longer. If you look at our previous generations vis-a-vis us, we are going to live longer. With every generation, life expectancy is increasing by at least 4 to 5 years. So I think for some of us, it may even be 10 years, depending on how our, genetics play out. So if we are going to live longer, the fear is also that I should not outlive my money. And inflation is here to stay. We are in a country we are in a developing economy. There will always be a healthy level of inflation. There will be certain years where it is not so healthy, but inflation is here to stay. So things are going to get more expensive with every passing year as there's more money in people's pockets, as there's an increasing demand, and every few years we are seeing this cyclical, issue with all these global supply shocks that come, which also lead to a higher inflation. And at the end of the day, for those of us who are in our accumulation years, where we are still accumulating money for our retirement, there's also a challenge of competing goals. It's not just retirement that we are saving for. We are paying off home loan EMIs. We have children who are studying and their school fees need to be paid off. For some of us, we don't want to miss out on travel. We want to travel because those are the years where we can enjoy, trekking and actually actively exploring the world. So while there are all of these competing goals, it becomes more challenging to actually save enough for retirement. So how do we go from to the psychological comfort of goodbye tension and hello pension? Before we jump into visualizing our target fund, I want to leave you with this simple visualization just to say that life is essentially a timeline. There are 35 odd years where for some of us it's less, some of us it's more. 35 odd years where we are earning. And then there are around 30 to 35 years of retirement where we need to live off this money that we've accumulated in our earning years. So if some of you feel like a fire is possible, it's absolutely possible, but it comes with a trade-off. So by fire, for those of you who don't know, it means financial independence, retire early. Remember that retiring early would also mean living off that retirement corpus for a longer period of time, not just 30, 35 years, but possibly 40 years and earning over just 20, 25 years of time. So it is not an easy thing to do. And there are trade-offs that come with trying to retire quickly or accumulating this money very quickly. It's often not sustainable. It can come at a trade-off of other values that are important to you, like time to do other things that are important, like probably, moving your body, getting a workout, exploring some of your passions. So just keep this timeline in mind as we move forward to the next part of this conversation. Okay, so let's now start to define what does retirement look like for you. All right. So for those of you who are retired, how do you want your retirement to look now in the next few years? And for those of you who are now targeting a retirement goal, when you retire, you want to have enough money for what are all the different things that you want money for? So I'd like you to put pen to paper and start to list this down for yourself. What do you need money for in your retirement? And when you do this exercise, I want you to think in today's value. Let's not talk about inflation. Just in today's value, let's say you are retired today, you're living your older years today, what are all those expenses that you need to think about? So you can start by simply thinking about what your current expenses look like. What do my essential expenses look like? What are some needs, some wants, some dreams, some luxuries? And then think about which of these expense heads will continue to be there during your retirement. Some things like your essential living expenses, your spends on groceries, your spends on fuel, those will typically not go away. So some of them will also increase. Can someone tell me in the chat box what could be some of the current expenses you have that will increase during your retirement? Medical expenses, absolutely, Joy. Age care, yeah. So elder care, medical expenses, these are definitely going to go up. And medical inflation in India is in the range of 10 to 14%, which is not funny. I mean, it's really pretty high. Which are some of the expenses which will go down? Which ones will decrease? Or some of them might even go away. So some might not be there, and some new ones may get added. So can someone tell me which ones will lifestyle expenses will increase? Joy, is that what you're saying? Education. Education, yeah. So expense heads which will not be there possibly is education. Your children might have left the home by then. Their school fees may not be there. You might have paid off their college education. Some of us may carry that into our retirement also. Marriage, the children's marriage is something we might want to spend on in retirement. Can someone tell me about some new heads which will get added? Expense heads which you've never thought about? Ritvik very rightly pointed out, it depends on what age you retire. Absolutely. So, Ritvik, for yourself, think about this and tell me what are some of the new expense heads that may get added during your retirement. So, some of you who've been postponing travel, you may want to travel more during the first few years of your retirement. So this is a way to now start designing a retirement budget for yourself because this will help, this will feed into your target fund calculation. So what I'd like for you to do as step one is estimate 1 year of expenses in today's value, taking all of this into account. Now, let's get a little deeper into how to calculate your target fund for retirement. So this is only for people who are in the phase of accumulation. So my question to you is the money now. So now this is a question that will help us answer how to calculate the retirement fund. So the money you withdraw, once you've put this retirement fund together, you've accumulated and you're ready to retire, what is going to happen? The money you withdraw from your retirement fund, is it going to increase every year? Is it going to remain the same? Or is it going to decrease every year? Absolutely. Thank you, Joy. So, like a lot of you said, there is going to be inflation. It is going to increase every year. Therefore, now let me help you calculate your target fund. Okay, these are the years, and EY refers to earning years. These are your earning years. Let's say you earn for the next 30 years, and then you've created this retirement corpus for yourself. Year one, you take out, let's say, 100 rupees. What is going to happen in year two? You're going to take out more than that, inflation adjusted. The year after that, even more than that. So there is also a compounding effect to how much you take out of your retirement fund year on year. So now, what I want to do is, to give you an analogy, I want to use a water tank. We have a water tank. This water tank is our retirement fund. And every year we're getting an annual return. So let's say around 8 to 10% every year goes into this retirement fund. And we're still assuming we are already retired. What is going to happen about our annual withdrawals every year? Is the annual withdrawal going to stay the same every year? So you get an annual return, and then whatever return you get, you withdraw just that amount. Is that what's going to happen? So is your retirement principal going to remain the same year on year? Can someone tell me in the chat box? Amit says no, no, it's not going to. It's not going to. It's going to decrease. Absolutely. It's going to decrease. So your principal is going to decrease year on year. This water tank that you've created for yourself is not going to remain the same. Maybe in the first 10, 15 years, or maybe in 20 years of your retirement, you may not have to dip into your principal of your corpus. But there will eventually come a time when your annual withdrawals would have increased so much that the return is not able to take care of that. Now you need to start dipping into the corpus. So there will come a point in time where you start eating into the corpus, and that is what any good retirement calculation will assume. So anyone who tells you that, just build your 5 crores or 10 crores and then just live off the annual return is grossly mistaken. If you have a 30 to 40-year lifespan into retirement, the annual return is not going to be enough. Midway into your retirement, you are going to start depleting the principal of your corpus. So any good calculator will assume that at the end of your retirement period, whenever you make your last withdrawal, at the end of your life expectancy, that last withdrawal will take your corpus to zero. And if that happens, there are a lot of assumptions that we need to use to build buffers. So let me start by giving you a simple way of calculating your retirement target fund. So everyone is with me so far? Have you heard of this 4% rule or 25x rule, which influencers keep talking about? So let's now break down this 4% rule. What does the 4% rule really say for us? It says, let's call it the 25x rule. So it's basically 100 divided by 4, 25. 25 into, where's my pen? Yeah. So 25 into this annual retirement budget which you calculated, right? So if you're already retired, let's say you're in your 60s and you've got around 30 years ahead of you, you can do the simple calculation of 25 into your annual retirement budget, and that will give you some sense of what kind of a fund you should be sitting on today. Now, if you haven't hit retirement yet and you still have a few years left to retire, you also have to take into account inflation. So let me quickly workshop this number for you. I will share my screen. Just give me a second. Okay. So basically, we are saying that if we start with, we need 10 lakhs today. So I'm just going to take a conservative 10 lakh figure and say that I need 10 lakhs today. Inflation is 6% per annum. And yeah. So going by the 4% rule, you need to be sitting on around 2.5 crores. So that's basically 10 lakhs divided by 4% or 25 into your 10 lakhs, 2.5 crores. Now let's say you have 10 years left for your retirement. In that case, you need to also take into account inflation. So what you will do is you will take your 10 lakh figure, you will multiply it by 1 plus your 6% inflation raised to the power of 10 years. So that will first take you to the figure that you need in the first year of your retirement. To that, you will divide it by 4% or multiply it by 25. So this will take you to a number which is your the amount you require in your retirement, which is around 4.5 crores. Is this calculation clear to everyone? Please just give me a yes. This is not 4% rule of property, Amitji. This is a 4% rule of calculating the retirement target fund that you require. All right, great. So with me so far, you'll also have the recording with me so you can relook at this calculation. Now, this 4% rule has been built on, unfortunately, it's been built by an American financial planner called William Bengen for American, retirement numbers. So they have taken American stocks, American bond, historical values, and then they've taken, American rate of return into consideration and American inflation into consideration and built this. Remember, in the US, the inflation rates are lower than what we see in a developing economy like ours. So a lot of research is now ongoing in India about what is a safer withdrawal rate in the first year of retirement. Remember, this is 4% only applies to the first year. Going forward, it will be 4% plus another 6% of inflation and so on. Remember, we had done that increasing withdrawal. So this 4% now you need to take a slightly higher value, which is basically 3.5%. 3 to 3.5% is a more conservative and a better estimate for an India inflation and for India stocks and bonds. So this assumes that you will be sitting on a 60-40 stocks to bonds ratio. So, bonds to stocks ratio. So 60% in bonds and 40% in stocks. And with that assumption and around 30 years of lifespan and 6% inflation, this retirement calculator has been built. So I'll just stop sharing and go back to my presentation now. The idea of showing you this was to give you a sense of how to do a simple rule of thumb calculation. Is this precise? Absolutely not. The better thing to do is to trust a calculator that SEBI has come up with, or AMFI has come up with, or meet a SEBI registered investment advisor to help you run this calculation with more detailed inputs about your lifespan, because this is only giving you one scenario. It's not taking into account what would be your asset allocation at retirement. Will you be sitting on all FDs? If you're sitting with all your money in FDs, then you will need a much higher amount during your retirement. If you're sitting in a higher value of equity, that will also lead to its set of problems with all the volatility and what is called sequence risk. You can read about that. So we're looking for an ideal allocation between bonds and FDs and some amount in equity or stocks. And that will what will give you the correct calculation. And for that, you need to sit down and look at different scenarios. All right, I hope this gives you an idea. So what will happen through this calculation is, and especially for those of you who are looking at retirement 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you can start to look at this as the future value that you want to get to. Once you know that future value, go to any SIP calculator online, enter this target amount. This is the future value I want to get here by, let's say, in 10 years' time. It will tell you, based on a certain rate of return, what kind of an SIP you need to be doing to reach your target. Okay, so how do I get there? Look at calculators, but before that, also take stock of where you are right now. How much do you have in assets? What are all those income generating assets you have? What are the loans you're paying off? And do a simple mapping to say, of all the existing assets, let me get my pen on again. Let's say I want to allocate my provident fund to retirement. I have some money sitting in equity mutual funds. I want to allocate that to my retirement. I want to allocate my stocks to retirement, my NPS to retirement, because there will be other goals as well. You might want to set aside money for your kids' college fund, for your kids' marriage fund. So all of those will also come from certain monies. So it's very important to do a quick and dirty calculation for yourself to say, these are all the assets I have currently in their current value. Just take a snapshot and then do a simple mapping to say, if these are all the goals I have for my retirement fund, these are the funds that I want to allocate. Once you've done that, then you can think about whether this is the right kind of allocation or you need to rejig the allocation, and what is the gap between where you are and where you want to go. So how much is already saved up? How much more to go? Now, where do you set aside money for your retirement fund? Unfortunately, we don't have that much time today for me to talk about all the products that you can invest in. But we're basically saying that retirement is a goal which is going to inflate over time. We've already seen the inflation effect. So if we are keeping our money in investments or savings that don't beat inflation, then the money is going to lose its purchasing power over time. So you want to put your money into income generating investments that are going to help you compound your money over time. So let's also look at, so while I can't go deep into these today, given how much time we have, I would be happy to come back and do a session on just investments, what is all available to you on your investment menu card, and how to get started, or how to optimize your SIPs. So now let's talk about the power of compounding. So what happens to 1 lakh if you were to put it in a long-term investment? So let's say you're putting it in an investment giving you 12% return. I know a lot of you will say, what is there any investment giving 12% return right now? So I'm taking 12% as the average historical return that the Nifty 50 has given since its inception. So assuming that the equity markets continue to perform and give that kind of growth, which is very much possible given that we are investing in companies that will generate profit over time. We're also a developing economy. And if we just go by history of not just our economy, but other economies as well, a 10 to 12% rate of return capital gain on your year on year on an equity investment is possible if you stay invested for the long term, right? So if you're giving it 30 years time, you can 30x your money. If you have 10 years time, you can 10x your money. So just think about, how compounding works. And initially, you don't see the profits at all. You don't see the compounding effect. But as you hold for longer and longer, you start to see the benefit of time. So keep those SIPs going and be patient with the markets. Because at the end of the day, there is only one or two assets that are able to generate inflation beating returns over time. One is, of course, your equity, which is your stocks, and the other is gold to some extent. Gold also in the past, if you see, has delivered 7 to 9%. Last year has been an outlier, but all of this is very cyclical and lumpy in nature, very, very volatile. So it's very difficult to say if the asset will continue to perform the same way. But equity markets, we know what we're investing in. If we're investing in the first 500 basket of stocks in the Nifty 500, then we know that these are companies which have a combination of large, mid, and small cap. So there is scope to make these inflation beating kind of returns over time. All right. So now let's talk about SIPs. So if you're putting in 10,000 every month in say 2026, in 30 years time, you will be sitting on a 3 crore kind of corpus. So the larger your SIPs, and if you're able to step up your SIP year on year, then the larger the sum you will have
Hello.
at retirement. Yeah. Okay. So now let's go back and just see what else you need to be thinking about during accumulation. Now, during your accumulation, that like we'd spoken about earlier, there are so many other competing goals. So what are you going to do when you also have to take care of your child's higher education? There are other expenses with the kids. There's the car you want to buy, and so on, and a home that you want to buy. So I would suggest a rule of thumb, which is basically to say that if you have rupees 100 coming in every month, of that, spend around 50% on your living expenses, 20 on your home loans, not more than that, 10% for your short-term savings, and at least, if you can help it, 20% towards your long-term goals. And if you can't start with 20% immediately, look at stepping up by at least 5% year on year. And even when you think about your goals on an ongoing basis, look at what is urgent and important. So when I say urgent, I mean it is time bound. And by important, I mean it is something that uh, honors a very important value for you. So do look at this when you are thinking about prioritizing your goals and thinking about all of these trade-offs. So for a lot of us who've got around 15 to 20 years left for retirement, retirement may not be urgent, but it is definitely important. So I would use this as a decision-making matrix when I am thinking about all of my financial goals. And most importantly, automate, automate, automate. Make sure that you are doing systematic investment plans. If you are an entrepreneur or someone who doesn't get a fixed salary, you can look at putting lump sum into systematic transfer plans, which are very similar to SIPs. In an SIP, the money is getting deducted from your savings account. In an STP, you're moving that money to a liquid fund and automating a systematic transfer month on month into your target fund, which would be essentially an equity mutual fund. All right. So let's also look at what happens to a mere 10,000 rupees if you were to put it in every month and benefit from the power of compounding. So we've already spoken about what happens if you put a fixed amount over a 30-year period. Now let's look at what happens if you were to step it up year on year. If you were to step it up, you would essentially have 1.5 times what you had if you didn't step it up 5% year on year at least. So I'm taking a very conservative 5% here. Of course, life doesn't work this way. So there'll be certain years where you're contributing less. There are certain years where you will be more aggressive in the way you step up your SIPs. All right. So now I want to address, we are at 7:37. I want to take some time to address what happens at the withdrawal stage when you've accumulated your retirement corpus. Where will the retirement income come from? So let's talk about a withdrawal strategy. Now, what is the key objective when you are at that withdrawal stage? It is essentially to manage that risk of over withdrawing. You don't want to end up with, you don't want to, make sure that money, you don't overlive your corpus, so you want that money to be there throughout your lifespan. So Overdrawing can come from higher inflation. It can come from lifestyle creep. Can someone tell me what lifestyle creep means? Absolutely, Joy Ghosh. 4% doesn't work in India, but 4% can work if you have a certain type of asset allocation which is more aggressive towards equity. Otherwise, a 3 to 3.5% works better. Can anyone explain what lifestyle creep means? Is it the same as inflation?
Suddenly your expenses increase and you'll start to live slightly posh lifestyle.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, Anurag. So lifestyle creep is basically you expanding your own lifestyle, irrespective of where inflation is. No expenses rising with income. Expenses rising with income. Okay, yes, absolutely. Gautam, it's basically to say if you're living off a certain income, your expenses go up. And this is not without inflation. It's basically to say that you're spending more on premium products and services and more luxurious products. So as long as that is within your salary step up, it's perfectly fine. But if your salary is not going up at the rate of inflation and creep, then there's again a problem of over withdrawal that can happen. All right. There's also something called sequence risk. Have any of you heard of what sequence risk means at the withdrawal stage?
Yeah. So if the
Yeah,
market
go
is
ahead.
going down a lot when
Mhm.
you are early years of retirement, so in that case, you come to a sequence risk sort of, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Ritik. This group already seems to know a lot about retirement. So, yes, so sequence risk is basically to say that if you're heavily invested in the market when you hit your retirement, so your target fund has more money in equity mutual funds and in stocks. Let's say the market is down for an extended period. This can also lead to a problem of not having enough during your retirement. So there is a way to manage that. We will talk about what that is, but this is for people who are on the other side of the risk spectrum. They're not on the FD side, but they're more on the equity and volatile side when they hit retirement. And of course, another problem could be just living longer than you thought you would. And we often underestimate that, but this is also an important buffer to take into your retirement calculation, given that any good retirement calculator takes zero after your last withdrawal. So your balance becomes zero at the end of the last withdrawal. So you want to take into consideration a few extra years of lifetime when you run the calculation. So, what are the strategies to manage these risks? In my opinion, there is basically two key strategies. One is staying within your withdrawal limit. Withdrawal limit, of course, need not be 3.5 or 4. It could be 3%, it could be 2%, depending on what your asset allocation looks like. But staying within that sustainable withdrawal rate. That's number one. The second is to have a bucket strategy for your retirement withdrawals. So I'll just talk about what that is in my next slide. But before that, I wanted to ask the group here, do you know what a bucket strategy is? Gautamji, go ahead and explain bucket strategy. I see a yes from you.
Okay, so I do it. I mean, very simple-mindedly.
Sure.
Without any sophistication. So essentially, put away 5 years of your expenses. Um, I have put away more, around 8,
Okay.
because sometimes 5 years is also not long enough for the market to recover. That has happened in the
Yeah,
past, but it's safe
absolutely.
enough. So when the market is down, very, very down, you don't withdraw from your equity funds at all. You just take money out of this bucket,
Yeah,
and when the equity market is up, you rebalance. So let's say you rebalance once every year. So even if the equity market is down,
yeah.
you are using your funds opportunistically. Uh,
Fantastic. Yeah,
but
go ahead.
I will have a question at the end. Please give me an
Sure,
opportunity for your comments
sure,
on my strategy. Thanks.
sure. You're welcome. All right. I think Gautamji has explained it very well. I'm going to break his strategy down into three buckets and not two. So I preferably start with a short-term bucket. Now, remember, friends, we're talking about buckets, and all of this money at the end of the day it's better for you to think of it as withdrawing the amount you need and spending it rather than thinking of products that will give me an income. A lot of us think of post office monthly income scheme. We think of, let me just get my pen on again, sorry. Yeah. We all ask about questions. Tell me, where can I get a monthly income from? If I just put so there is the post office monthly income scheme, there is RBI floating rate bonds, there are other investment grade bonds that can give you a periodic coupon. Then there is NPS, which will give you a insurance annuity income. And then there is rental income from your real estate. Now, remember, at the end of the day, if our strategy is to say that we are going to make these withdrawals and we'll end up with zero at the end of the year, it's okay that your short-term bucket has just 5 years of money and you are using up this 5 years of money as you go along. You don't have to have something where you're putting this money and just, again, keeping your principal the way it is and just living off the interest income, because the principal is also losing its purchasing power over time. So a better strategy, and therefore I'm just going to draw a slash across this. These are great for those of you who have a very large sized bucket. It's fine. But for those of you who want to very strictly align with this sustainable withdrawal strategy and a bucket, I would say you literally need just 5 years of money, or as if you're more comfortable with 8 years. Again, this is all very subjective. So, what is your psychological comfort? You need money in your savings account. You need money in fixed deposits, which you can break in a laddered format every year. And you need to be doing systematic withdrawals from your liquid funds. So a systematic withdrawal from a liquid fund, you can do just the interest component, but you can also set up an SWP in a way that you consume the entire money sitting in that liquid fund. So you could set up that SWP in a way that you have a monthly income coming in, but eventually you are using up that corpus. In the meanwhile, you have a long-term bucket which is more than 10 years of money. Remember, when you hit 60 or 65, you still got to think about age 80 and 90. You need a bucket which is in inflation beating instruments and growing at a more aggressive pace. Typically, people put around 33 to around 40% of their money in this bucket. This has aggressive hybrid funds. It has a larger chunk towards large cap. We are looking at lower risk stocks, so more large cap allocation. It could have a little bit 5 to 10% in gold and silver. There could be some real estate possibly, but I don't see real estate as an inflation beating asset. Please, I mean, some of you might have a different opinion on it, but I don't consider this inflation beating. You can look at global ETFs if you want to also make sure that your money is appreciating and able to beat the dollar appreciation that's happening. So with the rupee depreciating, global ETFs are also a great idea. And some money which is in, if you have the risk tolerance, then you can also look at small caps and mid caps through flexi cap funds or multi cap funds, or even standalone small cap and mid cap if you've got a sizable large cap allocation. So this bucket is what will keep growing aggressively. As Gautamji said, there will be certain years, extended periods like we are going through right now. Since 2024, our equity markets have given a very poor return, less than what an FD gives. So there will be extended periods like that. But just given how equity works historically, if you are invested for 10 years or more, you will start to see that average return, which is inflation beating. At the same time, you will always hold a medium term bucket, which is parked in medium term kind of instruments. So PPF here, I'm not talking about a 15-year PPF product, but I'm saying that you would have already come to a point where you're only extending it by blocks of 5 years. It could be senior citizen savings scheme now. These are both schemes which give 7.1%, around 7.7, this gives 8% plus, the senior citizen savings scheme. But you also want some money continuing to grow in slightly aggressive instruments. So you could look at hybrid funds or balanced advantage funds, which basically put your money into a little bit of equity and a little bit of debt. Again, this depends on your risk tolerance, whether you want to take a conservative hybrid fund strategy or a balanced strategy or an aggressive strategy. And you can look at large cap allocation. Gautamji, arbitrage funds, I would suggest in your SWP stage. So hopefully you've held some arbitrage funds into your retirement, and you can start doing an SWP from them. They definitely come with a tax advantage, but they work very similar to liquid funds. So when I talk about liquid funds, I'm talking about liquid funds, arbitrage funds, money market funds. I can't name all of them here, but basically your short-term debt fund kind of instruments. Arbitrage has a different underlying. It is linked to a little bit of FNO and some short-term debt instruments, but it gives you a very similar return to what a liquid fund would give you with better tax advantages. So definitely arbitrage funds in your short-term bucket. All right. And with that, I want to have 10 minutes for Q&A. So I'll jump into my final section, which is around protecting your plan. So irrespective of where you are in the journey, whether you are retired or you're at the accumulation stage, you don't want to come to a point where you're having to eat into this money for other things. And let's talk about what those other things could be. Can some of you tell me in the chat box, what are those unforeseen expenses that could eat into your retirement money? I'm sure you've seen it around you. You've seen people in your community, your family. Medical expenses. Absolutely. Unforeseen medical expenses. Many people have spent lakhs of money and totally utilized their retirement corpus for it. Family urgency. All right. Anything else? Any other kind of emergency or unforeseen circumstance beyond your control? Child unemployment. Anurag, I never thought of that. I'm going to note this point for future. Thank you for sharing it. Divorce, absolutely. Okay, great. So leaving a job, losing a job, um, so loss of income, medical emergency, earthquake or act of God. Thank you for sharing that. Damage to a comfort machine, damage to your home. This could be because of an act of God. We all know of earthquakes that have affected our cities. I live in Ahmedabad, so I know about that. I know that Chennai has gone through a very bad flood situation that has led to very posh residential areas getting damaged. So unforeseen expenses happen with all of us. And most importantly, I would say economic downturns. We are living through one as we speak. COVID was a black swan event. Have you all heard of Black Swan events? I would highly recommend reading a book by Nassim Nicholas Taleb called Black Swan, where he basically goes on to say that none of us can crystal ball gaze. We just don't know what the future is going to be. COVID is a kind of event that nobody saw coming. I would say even the recession nobody saw coming. And if anyone tells you that they know which the next multi-bagger is, they probably don't. Similarly, the economic downturn also nobody knows. So if you know about this famous portfolio management service provider called Devina Mehra, who runs First Global, she also talks about black swan events. And a lot of these portfolio management services are also humble enough to accept that they don't know which that next multi-bagger will be. They don't know when the next economic downturn will come. All you can do is prepare yourself for it, diversify your money, and protect yourself in other ways. So let's talk about what those protection mechanisms can be. One is, of course, building a contingency fund. How much do you need? For those of you who are starting out, at least 6 months of your expenses. Someone like Gautam ji, who's already in retirement, he might look at 1 year or 2 years as well. So, like he says, he wants to keep almost an 8 year buffer with him. So 8 years will cover 5 years of expenses and possibly 2 to 3 years of unforeseen expenses as well. So where would you park your emergency money? Will you put it in something with low risk and low return, or something with high risk, high return, or medium risk, medium return? Tell me in the chat box. Okay. Yeah. Arbitrage funds, Gautam ji, also I would put as a low risk investment. Most of you are saying one. Some of you have a slightly higher risk tolerance, so you're saying two. But I'm guessing no one will put it in three, and rightly so. You don't want to link your emergency fund to anything that's linked to the markets. You know how volatile markets can be. And in an emergency, you want your money, you want to preserve your capital, your principal. And therefore, preferably, you could go with something which is low risk with a low return. And arbitrage funds also come in that category, by the way. All right. Buy adequate health insurance. Some of you have already said that in the chat box. How much coverage is very subjective. It is your psychological comfort. It is what does medical treatment look like in your city? How expensive is it? And for those of you who have an employer covering you, make sure you have something outside of your employer coverage, because you don't want to be without health insurance in a situation where you are not earning and you don't have the employer coverage. All right. Quickly, this asset allocation quilt. Every year, every end of every calendar year, Mint comes out, and now all the big personal finance publications come out with it. They call it the asset allocation quilt. And what they're basically going to show you is that no one asset class consistently gives you fantastic performance. Look at how small caps have done. Small caps have large snooze periods. They can go for 2 to 3 years without giving you any return, right? And then there will be suddenly this lumpy 47% return that you see, right? Or 28% for that matter. The same applies to large caps. The same applies to every kind of asset class that you hold in your portfolio. And can someone tell me why I am showing you this? What is the point I want to make around protecting your money by showing you this asset allocation quilt?
Diversify.
Absolutely. Thank you, Srikanji. We're basically saying that it's important that you diversify across asset classes, across sectors, across financial institutions, and across geographies. I think we're all starting to see the importance of geographical diversification as well. So, for those of you who haven't explored that, please do start looking at that as well. A quick just illustration. I'm not giving you any percentages here, but I'm just giving you a sense of what an asset allocation could look like. So emergency fund, liquid funds, arbitrage funds, debt funds, your savings account, fixed deposits in a laddered manner. When you're thinking about something medium term, hybrid funds, debt funds, just like your bucketing strategy. The moment you're thinking long term for your retirement and you're accumulating wealth, you're typically looking at equity linked instruments, some stability through your bond investments. Many of you have EPF, so you will get that stability by default. But if you don't have that and you want that, you could do it through a PPF, you could do it through NPS, you can do it through a National Savings Certificate as well. And once you've created a substantial portfolio in equity, debt, and gold as investments, I haven't mentioned gold here. Yeah, I have mentioned. So around at least 10% in gold. And then you can start to look at real estate as a form of diversification. All right. So about the quick 5 takeaways that we have today. If someone wants to tell me what 1, 2, 3, 4 are, so one is define your retirement lifestyle. What else do you need to do? What is step 2? What is step 3? Step 4, 5. Any help on how to allocate my investments? Like, we'll come to that. I'll come to your questions shortly. Can someone quickly tell me what they learned today? You can mention any one step from some of the steps we talked about. Important to have a target. So define your retirement lifestyle. Calculate how much you'll need, and that's your target. What else? Benchmark your expenses. Absolutely. Anything else? Build your retirement corpus systematically. And when I say systematically, be consistent, have a system around it, automate your investments, do SIPs month on month, appropriate asset allocation. Absolutely. Have a retirement income strategy. So for those of you who are already retired, look at a sustainable withdrawal strategy in place. And most importantly, protect the buckets. Yes. Diversify while beating inflation. Absolutely. Thank you. I don't have time to cover books and apps. I will go straight to how you can connect with us. So please take a screenshot of the slide. And I think Ritesh will also share details with you after today's session. And with that, I will open up for questions, and let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, so I will now look at Amit's question. Any help with how to allocate my investments across different instruments? Like, if I have 100 rupees, how much in index funds, FDs, bonds? I think, Joy, you've answered it to an extent. You need an investment advisor. Also, Amit, end of the day, allocation comes from understanding goal horizon. So I think if you noticed, everywhere we are talking in buckets or in terms of goal horizon. We have a 5-year horizon. We can look at short-term, risk-free, low risk, low return instruments. If we have a medium-term horizon, then we can have a combination of slightly medium risk, medium return instruments. And the moment you have a 10-year or more horizon, you can look at more aggressive growth, kind of instruments. So I think I gave you an illustration, and I hope, Amit, that the illustration was helpful. A more detailed thing for you would be to actually sit down either yourself or with a planner to understand not just goal horizon, but also what is your risk tolerance. So there are people who are comfortable with having 100% equity portfolio for their long-term goals. And there are certain people who just want around 60% in FDs and just 40% in growth instruments. So totally depends on your risk capacity and your risk tolerance. Okay, Gautam ji has questions. Anybody else before we?
Can
Gautam
I?
ji can.
Yeah, I'm
Go
Srikanth.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead,
And
Srikanth
first
ji.
of all, must thank you on behalf of our association for simplifying a lot of things for us. Regarding
Thank
the
you.
selection, financial advisor, many times we see you are also advising to have a good financial advisor. How to get that? How to know that? How to from the market? Who is good? Who is bad? I mean, that is a very open thing. I may not
Yeah.
know. I don't know the person. How to get the idea about it?
Okay.
Uh,
So one, I'll tell you about where you can find the directories. So if you go on to SEBI's website, SEBI has an investment advisor, registered investment advisor directory. So you'll get the names of all the people who actually hold licenses. And unfortunately, we're a very small group. We're less than 1,000. We're only, I think, around 940 advisors for a country of 1.45 billion. But that's the case, Srikanji. So you'll find all our names on SEBI's website. So that's one way to just verify who these people are. Do they actually hold licenses? That's number one. Second, you'll be interested to check on what their fee model are. So and if there are any conflicts of interest. So I think, like someone rightly pointed out, you have mutual fund distributors who like to call themselves advisors, but they are not actually registered investment advisors. And then you have a bunch of people who are SEBI registered investment advisors or SEBI RIAs. So at a first level, you want to be able to discern between who is an RIA and who is an MFD. MFDs earn from commissions. So for example, I have both. I have a MFD license and an RIA license in my LLP. In the MFD, I earn commissions. So if I'm sitting on a certain asset base, as the market value of that asset base grows, I will earn commissions on it. Now, my commissions, I will definitely get higher commissions if I am, recommending products which are new fund offers, which are thematic schemes, and these may not always be good for you. So even with a mutual fund distributor, you want to do your due diligence, understand what kind of commissions they typically earn, what kind of products they recommend. But if you want a conflict, something which is free of any conflict of interest, you want to go to a fixed fee only financial advisor. So even as someone who has both the licenses, SEBI has very clearly mandated that we need to have a segregation between our fee only practice and our brokerage practice. You can't have a client from whom you're getting compensated by both the methods. Now, coming to how an RIA earns fees, we earn fees upfront, so you're paying from your pocket, and this could be a fixed fee. So some of us follow a fixed fee model, and some of us charge on percentage of AUM. So percentage of AUM, our fees can go as high as around 1.5% of the asset value, and usually these are just SEBI assets. So SEBI securities that you have, on that there'll be a fee that we charge. So these are typically the two models. There's actually a website which lists a lot of the fixed fee financial planners. Unfortunately, I am a fixed fee planner, but I am not listed on that website. But if you just write fixed fee financial planners, you'll see there's also a website available online where some of them, a subset of them, are listed. So I hope that answers your question. SEBI is regulating this increasingly. Absolutely, Joy. Yeah. The SEBI RIA career, and I know the space is very, very regulated. So SEBI expects us to comply to a large number of their guidelines and regulations. Gautam ji, do you want to unmute and ask your question, and then I'll get to Ritwik's question?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so my principal question is how reliable are the inflation figures released by the government. It's not only a matter of reliability, it is also a matter of appropriateness. So, as we have discussed earlier, people who are retired, their inflation, subjective inflation numbers should be different because a lot of costs are gone, medical costs are up, and there the inflation is much higher. First of all, that we have to figure that out. Secondly, it's more to do with my allocation. I just have two buckets, and one is entirely arbitrage, and the other is entirely index funds of different kinds. Now,
Okay.
with the larger bucket of index funds, even in this market, if I'm getting 11%, why should I be worried? I should be worried if the inflation is much more than 6%. But if it is 6%, I can keep withdrawing 5%, inflation adjusted, without even touching my corpus. Right?
Right. But Gautamji, are you getting an 11% as we speak? Like, have the last 2 years given you that kind of return on your index funds?
This is like the annualized return.
Yeah. Annualized return for the last couple of years. I'm curious to know
Oh,
if
no.
the
All
last,
time.
yeah,
All
all
time.
time. Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you, yeah, go
Last
ahead.
3
Sorry.
years is much better, 17%.
Okay. So I feel as long as you're getting that kind of annualized return, you are safe. You're okay as long as you're within your safe withdrawal limit. But there are very long phases, and I'm guessing that you're getting that kind of return because you're partly invested in global markets, Gautamji, because Indian markets haven't given
Yes,
more than, yeah, 3 to
yes.
5% return.
Motilal Oswal Nasdaq.
Got it. Yeah, I guessed as
Awesome.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yes, it's fine, but again, you cannot tell if you see even how the Nasdaq is today, the Nasdaq is at an all-time high, and we don't know how much longer it can sustain that, and how much longer U.S. government can also keep the yields as high as they have. So at some point, this whole thing is going to implode, is my sense. I may be wrong. Like I said, none of us can really see what's coming. Therefore, I would be more comfortable living off my arbitrage fund bucket and letting this continue to compound. And as and when I need, I just keep doing a spillover from my whatever earnings I've made on my equity bucket and just moving that into my arbitrage fund and liquid fund bucket.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Rebalancing all the time. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
But not more than
but
once
what
a
you're
year.
drawing out of, yeah, absolutely. But what you're drawing out of is still your stable bucket. You're not touching your equity bucket.
I'm
Is
drawing
my
out
opinion.
drawing out keeping rebalancing in mind. So
Fair
whichever
enough.
has grown, I'm drawing from there.
Got it. Your other question was around inflation. Yes,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. The consumer price inflation basket for India has been designed taking rural and urban inflation into account. So, is it reliable? No, because if you just look at the basket of goods, it typically does not represent what you and I spend more money on. Therefore, what do? We have to look at inflation at a product level. What are we spending typically on? What are the things that inflate at a higher rate? So for those of us who are still at the accumulation phase, you'll find that education, for example, school fees go up by 10 to 12% every year. Medical expenses for you are a matter of concern. So we'll have to look at each of these items in the basket and then come up with our number for inflation. So if we find that we're someone who also travels a lot abroad, you want to take you also want to take the currency depreciation into picture as you go along. So I hope that answers that. Absolutely. So we cannot go with just that 6% CPI number. We have to be more cognizant of each and every good and service that we use and consume. Coming to, yeah.
Which figure would be safe for somebody like me? I'm 74 years old. I'm retired. So
See, if I had to go, yeah.
Yeah.
So if I had to go with an average, I would be comfortable saying 8%.
Okay.
Anything more than that, I feel it has even inflation has a compounding effect. So it might
Yeah.
just make the number more than you actually, need to worry about. So I think that's also something to keep in mind. Can I answer
Thank you
Ritwik's
very
question
much.
next? Thank you, Gautamji, and great questions, and wishing you a happy retirement.
Thank you.
So the
Ritwik asks, yeah, go ahead,
yeah.
Ritwik.
So the 25x multiplier of your current expenses for the US, or say 30x multiplier for your current expenses for India, does it account what age, if you are retiring early, right? If you are someone
It
in 10,
doesn't, no, it doesn't take into account an early retirement, Ritvik. So for early retirement, you'll have to take a slightly higher number. I think the range will be closer to around 35x or 40x.
Okay. So, if we talk about in simple terms, right, what is
Yeah.
the age it is looking at? Is it looking at the typical 55 to
Yeah.
60
It's
age?
typically looking at 60 and it's assuming a 30-year lifespan.
Okay. So, if you increase the lifespan, how much multiplier you want to have? Say you want to retire in your late 40s, right?
Right.
And your current expense is say 10 lakhs a month. That's for the easy sake.
Ritvik, I haven't done the number, but my guess is hunches it's in the range of 35x to 40x.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it'll be better if we input your figures and then see what that takes us to.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you just talk about something that is a concept of a fat fire also, right? Where you
I
want to
don't know
leave
what
something. Where you
I don't
want
know
to
what that
leave some.
is.
So you want to leave something for your children, not just eat up in everything.
Ah, right. So I think that is a so while you calculate your target corpus in that case, you'll have to take into account that separately. Like it won't even figure in your sustainable withdrawal calculation. So you're taking a separate amount for that, and that you're already investing into, let's say, a bunch of equity, higher growth investments, and letting that compound separately. So I would just mentally account for that very differently than I would in this retirement calculation.
Okay.
Is percentage of AUM a better fee model for investment advisors? Anurag, this is a very, so there is a conflict even between fixed fee RIAs and percentage of AUM RIAs. Percentage of AUM definitely pays the RIAs better. Because at the end of the day, you also have to see how this compensates you. In a fixed fee model, I do feel that a lot of RIAs underpay themselves. Um, there are pros and cons of both. Percentage of AUM, some people think that there is a conflict of interest there as well because you're charging on assets, whereas a fixed fee, there's no conflict at all. Irrespective of what your AUM is, you're just charging a fixed fee. So there are pros and cons of both. I would say speak to a few who charge by percentage of AUM because there are also some very excellent folks in the market, and also speak to a few who charge fixed fee, and then make up your mind. Okay. Ritesh, can we wrap up with that?
Yes, Shilpa. Thank you very much.
But you one question, if you permit. Just last
Sure,
question.
please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. When we retired at 60, we get a good amount of corpus from those GPAs and all those things. My simple question: how to invest that? You told you have to create the buckets and all. Should we be
Yeah.
investing the lump sum in those buckets, or should we keep in the liquid fund and make it SIP from that to be on those buckets? I mean, suppose you get it
See,
2
so
crore
for your
rupees. So,
short-term bucket, Shrikant, it won't matter. Short-term bucket is
yeah,
anyway not linked to the markets, so that you'll move it
right.
lump sum into those investments.
Lump sum. Yes.
Medium term also, I would not be so worried if you're choosing balanced advantage funds. It's okay to move it lump sum. Now, data has shown that even if you move money lump sum into equity, over a 10-year period, whether you do STP or you do lump sum, it actually doesn't make that much of a difference. But having said that, a lot of us are very worried. It's again about our psychology. So given that, you can do the STP route. So what we do in such a case is we take around 1 year, 12 months to around 24 months to stagger, like every month we'll do an STP from certain liquid funds into a target fund for the clients. It comes at a tax. There is a tax implication because every
Very
STP you do is a switch. It's a switch out and then a switch in. So that switch out is a redemption. So do think about the tax
good.
angle as well while working this out.
So thanks a lot for the wonderful session you had. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Hitesh.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Okay, Shilpa and your team, thanks very much for Vidyapit community. Uh, uh, as just for intro, Vidyapit, as you know, is a 100-year-old school, and our association is committed to the welfare of our alums. Like so, and thanks to be the first one, we started this Praktani Prerna. We have our sessions, which is done by the alum, but Prerna is non-alum, and you are the first one, so you're the pioneer. Really, thanks for
Wow.
your time, for the prep and answering these questions. We have shared your details in the group. If someone is interested in, going deep and have some more questions, they will come to you. We will also upload this session with your approval on our website, so the people who have missed on this, they can benefit from it. And we will come back to you in based on the feedback. If there is something focused topic which we want to go into, we will give you enough time. And if you have something for us, we will invite to present it for us. And also thanks to all the audience for very engaging queries. And there were so many things which I hope would benefit you from this session. With that, I will end the session. And Shilpa, last words from you.
So, Ritesh, it's an absolute honor to be doing the very first session by a non-alum for this group. I was initially a little hesitant because I was told that it's an all-boys school. So I was like, I'm not sure if am I going to be the first woman doing this for an all-boys group.
Yes, yes,
So,
you
but
are.
I think yeah, I am. So, yay, good for me, and I'm very happy to have done this. And of course, I have my wing woman with me, Sudha, in attendance. And I'd actually invited a couple of more. We're an all-women group running this organization, and very proud to be doing that. And we're also women first. So, I would really invite you to come sign up with us, get your wives along, because I think what we don't realize is that men do have a lower lifespan than women. So many of your wives will outlive you, and you want to also prepare them for that kind of a scenario. So I would sincerely, invite you to come, include your wives, and let's also empower them along the way to be a part of these discussions on retirement planning.
You were totally awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Gautamji. My honor.